life, you need somebody. God has made it very plain that we can't get out of here without using one another. So I need you, you need me to survive. Let's say this thing we find. I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive.
Yes, that was just wonderful. Thank you so much. I was not prepared for that. That was fantastic. Don't worry, we will be bringing them back later in the show.
Well, Lori, I wasn't prepared for that either. I think that is some of the artistry Frank X. Walker was talking about, don't you?
I sure do, Tom. And to continue the artistry, I think it's time to welcome Langley Shazer to the stage. But before we do, I think we should tell you a little bit about his story.
That's right. Aside from being one of our friends, we often forget what an amazing icon he is.
Langley was raised in Bristol, Virginia, and he worked as a process engineer in Abington before joining Bristol, Virginia Public Schools. Now Langley is known as an advocate for performing arts, education, community involvement, and sustainability. He has a deep appreciation for history, philosophy, science, and different cultures and religions. An avid reader, Langley is passionate about learning all that he can and sharing that knowledge. Breaking down stereotypes, respecting human rights, and helping those less fortunate are his quest in life. He has a particularly strong calling to empower today's youth and encourage their interest in the arts. Now Langley loves all things antiquated, and he's known around town as the typewriter guy. As a matter of fact, he collects typewriters, which gives him the opportunity to explain to younger folks what a typewriter is. He offers type-ins, where he brings typewriters from his personal collection for people to enjoy and interact creatively and socially. That's fueled Langley's affinity for writing and encouraging others to write as well.
Typewriters being his tool of choice for his craft, Langley has been able to bring a forgotten medium back to life and give it relevance in this ever-growing digital world. His latest ventures continue to push the legitimacy of unplugging, again turning to typewriters to bring people together, propagating interpersonal interactions, creativity, conversation, and building a stronger community. It is his goal to push the boundaries of economics and social norms to continue to create new and diverse endeavors for generations. Langley has been published numerous times and is a monthly columnist for Inner Child magazine with his own column, Confessions of a Human, a column of personal reflection and memoirs. He's also a weekly columnist for the Loafer magazine, where he has created his column for poetry called The Casual Word. Langley also created and hosts a talk show on YouTube, also entitled The Casual Word, a platform of uplifting, encouragement, knowledge, and support for the everyday individual. He's been a cast member with the Yarn Exchange for over the last year, and we're so happy to have him joining us again tonight. Help us welcome our friend, Langley Shazer.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for that wonderful introduction. That was fantastic. This poem is called Arise. We no longer live in a time where imprisonment is a prerequisite for greatness. X, King, Mandela, Seal, Newton, Garvey. Discipline and determination is available along with freedom. Make a stand now, be a voice, where so many are now whispers and memories. Remember, as we stand on the shoulders, to continue our ascent to greatness. Thank you.
Thank you, Langley. You know, seriously, I could listen to his work all night. And if you have a chance, he does have his book of poetry available online. I think you would really find that enjoyable.
I have a story that ties in with literature. Well, actually, it's a newspaper that started about 200 yards from this theater here on downtown Main Street. It is not widely known that Jonesborough, Tennessee is home to the very first newspaper solely dedicated to the abolitionist movement. In 1820, at this location, Elihu Embry began publishing a weekly journal, the Manumission Intelligencer, and later the important monthly paper, which was the first of its kind in the United States, called The Emancipator.
Elihu Embry was the son of a Quaker minister. In his early years, Elihu purchased slaves and acquired more through his wife. However, in 1812, Embry felt compelled to free all his slaves to great financial sacrifice. It further states he then became a strong voice in the early days of the anti-slavery movement. What publication leaves out is that in his will, Elihu Embry provided for one slave named Nancy and her children be set free upon his death and made financial arrangements for them. So unless his death came so suddenly as to not revise this segment of his will, we can assume that he did indeed own slaves until his early death. This personal dichotomy is symbolic to the state of the country, which had just fought a war for independence and equality some 30 years previous, yet also relied on slave ownership for economic strength, especially in the southern agricultural region.
In 1820, the monthly publication named The Emancipator was released. It was the first of its kind in the country, dedicating all of its stories toward the abolition of slavery. It had over 2,000 paid subscribers in East Tennessee and Kentucky, equal to any other major regional publication of the day. In December of 1820, Elihu was stricken ill with bilious fever. He died on the 4th of December at age 38. Without anyone to take over his role as editor and publisher, The Emancipator ceased publication. But because of its important role in the early days of the abolitionist movement, the full collection of the papers was republished in 1932 by B.H. Murphy. This book is available at the historic Jonesborough Visitor Center, and in 1972, Elihu Embry's memory was honored by the Tennessee State Legislature for his work on behalf of the universal and equal liberty to all men.
This site would continue its legacy in the pursuit of equality for all by becoming the first African-American-owned property on Main Street when J.C. Cousins purchased the building. It was later owned by nurse Ella Russell, an African-American nurse, and the first hospital-trained nurse of any color to serve in this region. In 1886, J.C. Cousins and James Bailey would be the first African-American men to run for a countywide office in Washington County. Each ran for a different office, but during the same election year. While they did not win, they set an example. Others would follow in the decades to come. 82 years later, Ernest McKinney finally broke the color barrier when he was the first African American to be elected as alderman in Jonesborough on April 4th of 1968, exactly the same day Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Marion McKinney, Ernest McKinney's wife, would also become a leader in the community. Though Marion McKinney would not allow herself to be invisible, the work she and her husband did put them on the front lines in the march towards equality. In fact, Marion McKinney's speech given to the school board in September of 1964 played a major part of the decision to bring full and immediate integration of the schools. She recently found her handwritten speech on 2 pages of yellow legal paper. We'd like to read some of it for you.
We have come to ask for full integration of the schools. Booker T. Washington School cannot, in its present state, give the children the attention they need. 2 teachers in 2 classrooms are teaching children in grades 1 through 8. Presently, there are 18 students in the 7th and 8th grade level alone. 2 teachers cannot give the time to these children that they deserve. They are being educationally deprived. The children who are going outside of the county for a high school education into the city schools are being forced to leave their community and attend a segregated school. All of this because the county in which the children, their parents, grandparents, relatives, and friends live in, pay taxes in, and vote, does not see fit or think it right for these children to enter any of the 5 high schools in the county. A tuition is paid to Johnson City for children to attend an all-black high school. Up until now, we have not pressed the school issue 10 years later. The Board of Education, in compliance with the Supreme Court decision, has adopted a grade-a-year plan, which is now in its 4th year. We feel this is inadequate, too slow, and many children are suffering educationally under the present plan. We are all law-abiding citizens, and patience is a virtue. In 1954, the Supreme Court declared that racially segregated schools were unconstitutional. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended all segregation in public places and in the workforce. We feel it morally right for the schools to be integrated, and with the passage of the new law, we now know it is lawfully right. So with this feeling in mind, what is morally right and what we know is lawfully right, we ask for full integration of the Washington County schools come Thursday, September the 8th, 1964.
Several others spoke that day, but this speech drew particular attention. This speech, Marion recalls, had one of the school board members turn to her. She gave the speech on a Thursday night. On Monday, the school board met and voted for the full and immediate integration of the schools. Thank you, Marion McKinney, for your determination. Our community is stronger because of you.
It wasn't easy being a woman of color in the late 1850s. The country was divided and tensions were high in Knoxville. I was Margaret Stevens, a free colored woman with the property and land my daddy had left me. But that mattered little as opinions and loyalties grew stronger. Ferdinand Maxwell was easy on the eyes and smooth on the ears. He had light creamy skin that reminded me of coffee when cream wasn't scarce. Maybe that's what attracted me to him. By the time I was 20, he had won me over and we were well established under the law. People in his town were fond of saying that Ferdinand went to Knoxville looking for employment and found himself a wife instead. Well, I guess that was right. I guess they were right. But by 1862, Knoxville was a boiling point of contention. I may no longer have been an unwed woman of color, but I had married a man of mixed race, which did not make things easier. Ferdinand's mom was an established free woman in Jonesborough. So I sold my land and property, and like Ruth in the Bible, I moved to the unknown land to live with my mother-in-law. I was albeit to purchase 11 acres and land I saved from the Knoxville sale. Things were good in 1870. We had taken on a boarder, Walter Smith, was also of mixed race, and I think that was a kinship between him and Ferdinand. We still lived with Ferdinand's mom, and she helped with the kids, Ella and George, who toddled around and were constantly curious. Ferdinand got himself a job as a barkeep on the depot platform. Yes, things were going fine in 1870, except for Ferdinand's fondness for drink. Oh, he loved me and the kids and his mama, but drink was his mistress. He just couldn't leave her alone. And things spiraled. By 1872, he had already been arrested twice. While I welcomed our third child into the world, he fell deeper and deeper in debt. Once that debt was paid off, there was another one waiting in 1874. I had to place 9 acres of my land in a trust to start paying the debt, a debt we would be paying on for the next 5 years. By December of that year, Ferdinand was indicted again. This time there was no money, no friends, no land. It wasn't until April of 75 that I could pay the fine to get him out of jail. They were mighty dark times for us. But Jonesborough is a place full of mercy and forgiveness, a town that recognizes imperfections are as common as weeds. Through the darkness, we had continued in our faithfulness to our church, even Ferdinand when he wasn't in jail. And after a bit, Ferdinand also became involved with Jonesborough District Colored Convention, and in 1876, he and Walter were even sent as delegates to the Bulls Gap Convention, bringing back knowledge to help bring about political change. It takes longer to build it back up than it does to spiral down. But in 1878, our church voted Ferdinand the secretary of the building committee of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. That same year, Ferdinand was contracted for his first part-time job since his time in jail. T.H. Reeves, the man who held the trust on my land, hired Ferdinand to stain the bricks and the columns of the courthouse. Yes, we had fallen on dark times, but with the help of God and our community, those dark days were finally behind us.
It was a mid-September night the next year when the knock came. Ferdinand had been walking the railroad and was struck by an eastbound train.
I remember a huge weight on my chest and feeling it was sinking heavily into my stomach. I remember my fingers grasping for a chair for me to sit in, and the thoughts. There were so many thoughts all at once, swimming in my head, making the world seem dim, making me dizzy. How could I tell the children? Where would our money come from? I was never going to touch his calloused hands again. Who would teach George to grow into a man? How could they be sure if it was Ferdinand? I would be a single colored woman again. There would be no more deep rolling laughter. And Ella, I would have to tell Ella.
A lawsuit was filed against the East Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia railroads, awarding her $875. Unfortunately, Ferdinand was in the middle of building a house when that train came along, and the homeowner filed a suit against Ferdinand's estate for unfinished work.
The settlement was well beyond what we had, and I still had 9 acres tied up in the trust. But 2 acres were still mine, so I sold those 2 acres and paid Ferdinand's last debt. In 1881, the rest of my land reverted back to me, and I sold a little more for us to get by. And again in 1883 and 84, again in 88, until all my land was gone and my children were grown. And now it's 1900. My children have all married, cloaked in a legacy of dignity and respect for the Maxwell name. It is a new century now, full of new beginnings and possibilities, and I, Margaret Maxwell, an unwed colored woman in my 60s, intend to sit right here on my front porch and welcome each one.
That's a true story based on the files in the Washington County Archives, a wonderful resource we have in our community. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to A Night with the Yarn Exchange on WETS 89.5 FM out of Johnson City, Tennessee. And we're back. And guess who I've got with me? We 5. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Y'all haven't noticed that we were sitting over there in the corner right there. And when you have a brain dump, well, that's what we were trying to fix over there on that brain dump. I have forgotten the words to the song.
And everyone else had too.
And of course, the phone didn't work in here anyway.
But I came up with it.
She came up with it. Of course, a woman. That's right. Go ahead. Come on, you all get into this. Give God some praise for this place. God is up to something. God is up to something. Yes. My God is up to something. You know God is up to something. So get ready. song here. Again, we thank you guys for bringing, for allowing us to be here. And one of the things that we five do, let me do this before we get finished. On the far end, that is one of my pastors, as I was an understudy for him. That's Pastor James Whiteside. One of my dear friends, Johnny Russo. Deacon Johnny Russo. Pastor Whiteside is the pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Kingsport. Johnny is one of the deacons here at Bethel Christian Church. And this is what I call baby girl. This is my baby girl. It's Emma Conley. She's originally from Greenville, but I stole her. And we can't go back to Greenville because we're really always looking for her. She's going to remind me that I took one of his prized possessions. And of course, my name is Melvin Conley. I'm the senior pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church in Kingsport. Again, we thank you. We thank God first and foremost for all that He does for us. Continue to pray for us. We're going on our 16th year together. We lost our